Automotive journalism is a game of forging relationships with PR departments to bring cars to your platform. And more often than not, it has its challenges, which is why the car we're featuring today has eluded me thus far. Despite this, I've still managed to bring you some of the fastest EVs on the market and some amazing cars from Audi, from Land Rover, Porsche, as well as Rolls-Royce. But I can only recall 2 instances where taking a car home for the week to review has made me this excited and this giddy. Today, it's the Renault 5. Now, my reasoning is twofold. Firstly, when I first laid eyes on this car at the Geneva Motor Show about a year or so ago, I remember thinking, wow. And the second part is that it is proper nostalgic. I remember growing up with Max Power magazines and the scene which had a lot of heavily modified Renault 5s. So it's safe to say that the Renault 5 is a bit of an icon. However, now that that's all been covered, from its design, looks, the tech, the marketing, as well as the price, they've nailed it. And now that the hype is slowly starting to settle, let's take our rose-tinted glasses off and think about whether you should be parting with your hard-earned cash. We can all agree that it's a very good Renault 5, but is it a good car? Let's find out.
This car isn't from the PR team. It's from my good friends over at Renault Enfield, who have kindly loaned me their demonstrator for the next few days. So if you're interested in viewing, test driving, or looking to order one, I'll leave all their details in the description box down below. Thank you, Renault.
The Land Rover Defender 110 and the Porsche 911 Dakar were the other two, in case you were wondering. Not only do I want to find out whether the R5 is a good car, but I'd like to do so because I think it has the potential to make an awesome secondary car within our household. Over the last 2.5 years, me and my partner have been sharing the GLC, and where the R5 wouldn't work so well is as a primary car. Reason being, space. As a family of 3, it's very rare that we travel light. At any given point, the boot is full with buggies, with toys, boots, scooters, and that's before we introduce the weekly shop. And then there's the child seating area back here, which is quite tight when you have an almost 3-year-old that seems to be getting heavier by the day. Now, truth be told, it's not as tight as I thought, but naturally it's going to have its limitations. So what if we leave the GLC, aka the family car, to take care of all that sort of stuff, and I use the R5 for my daily commute, dotting in and out of town, and doing the dessert run at 8 PM when you're about to settle down for a Netflix marathon and there's nothing sweet left in the cupboard. This houses my camera bag, my tripod, and various other bags perfectly. Let's get back on the road. This is the iconic 5 comfort trim. In short, it means it's the range topper. It's finished off in this rather loud pop yellow, and I think it suits the car to a T. In fact, this car would pull off just about every color on the spectrum. It doesn't matter which spec you go for, it looks just as fantastic. And if you do decide to go for an entry-level car, it doesn't suddenly mean that you're going to get steel wheels, halogen light bulbs, or black bumpers. Every single trim that's available for you to choose from is worthy of the praise that the R5 has gotten. Now, I'm knocking on the door of 40 years of age, and this doesn't feel like I'm having a midlife crisis. I have got many nods of approval as I've been driving this over the last few days. This being the high spec means that I get heated seats for myself and my passenger, as well as a heated steering wheel. I've got climate control, I've got Apple and Android phone integration, I've got parking sensors, I've got reversing camera, I've got folding mirrors and electric windows all around. There are a few extra options which you can choose on the configurator, including a dash cam, which I think is hugely useful, a decorative gear selector, if that's your thing, and there's also a storage option where you can have a magnetic phone holder, which I think is definitely worth having as well, and various other storage solutions you can choose from. This car has the 52 kilowatt-hour battery pack on board, and it has a single motor which drives the front wheels. I have made another video featuring the Smart #3 where I talk about the benefits of having smaller batteries as well as a single motor. If you want to check that video out, I'll link it either on the screen or in the description box down below. Feel free to check it out after this video. Renault claim a 0 to 62 mile an hour time of 7.9 seconds and a range of 250 miles. Now, I picked this up at about 90% charge and it was showing me about 190 miles. Since then, I've got up to 100% and it was reading about 196 miles, which is pretty much in line with every other electric vehicle that I've had on loan. If I can get anywhere near 200 miles in a small city car, such as the R5, bearing in mind its footprint, how small it is, I'd have zero complaints. Those 200 miles via a competitive supplier of energy through your home wall box would cost you a £5 or £25 if you use a public charge point. Now, the alternative to the Comfort comes in the shape of the Urban model. That has a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack on board, and Renault claimed that that can achieve 192 miles worth of range versus the 252 that we get in this. They both have a near as makes no difference 30-minute direct current charge time to get you from 15 to 80%. The power is rated at 118 brake horsepower in the Urban versus the 148 brake horsepower found in this Comfort model. There's only 1 second difference in the 0 to 62 mile an hour sprint, and they can both achieve a top speed of 93 miles an hour eventually. Let's hit the multi-sense button and put it into Sport. Okay. Well, this is where the R5's gotten its flowers, isn't it? It has the best of many worlds. Really good comfort levels. It's got instant power delivery, the responsiveness that you would expect from an EV, and the characteristics that you get from a hot hatch. There's a hint of torque steering when you put your foot down, up to about 30 miles an hour, and it slowly starts to settle and get into its rhythm. There's not a lot in the way of feel from the steering wheel, like with most EVs that I've driven, but the steering overall is very sharp. It's probably the most point and shoot car that I've driven in a long time. You could place it exactly where you want every time without fail. It's so composed and it's so much fun. There's enough body roll for you to still feel like you're part of the action. You never feel like it's going to leave you in a lurch. It doesn't feel like you have to do very many corrections. You point the car exactly where you want it to go, and it just does. Now, that is excellent. Whether it's a fast sweeping bend or a slow sharp turn, it really doesn't feel like it's going to lose composure very easily. Oh, bit of the traction kicking in there. Shortly after collecting the car from Renault Enfield, I'd taken the car onto the A10, and one of my immediate reactions were how well this car was sprung. It felt so mature and so well composed for such a small car. Considering it's on 18-inch wheels, the ride is excellent. In today's climate, it's rare that aesthetics or design really have the final say in the boardroom. It's often quashed by cost-saving measures by accountants or because of efficiency measures thanks to the sticks at the EU. But 18-inch wheels were preferred to 17s because they looked better. When I showed it some undulating roads in Hertfordshire, the R5 still remains unfazed. The ride has truly been consistent across a variety of surfaces I've shown it, which has made the R5 more fun to drive, normally and briskly. The difference in the driving modes of Comfort and Sport is quite apparent. As soon as you put it into Sport, the steering wheel gets heavier and the throttle response is further enhanced. Not to mention my driver zone is now red. Now, a 7.9 second time of 0 to 62 mile an hour, especially by today's standards, might not sound like a lot, but trust me when I say this, it's brisk enough. If you need to grab the space at a busy roundabout, you'll have every confidence that the car is going to spring into life just as when you need it. If you need to perform a swift overtake, you can do so with the utmost confidence. And whilst that may be true of any EV, that hasn't always been the case in small little hatchbacks. It's a fantastic little quality to have. There's not much in the way of direct competition to the Renault 5, perhaps only the Fiat 500. The smart car is no longer the tiny little city car that it once was, and the new Minis are anything but. So I think the only other car that's anything like the Renault 5 that you're likely to encounter on the road is probably another Renault 5, which is a good thing. The good news continues where it matters, how the car feels and functions from behind the wheel. The interior is a breath of fresh air. It has character, which is in line with the rest of the car. It's not all about touchscreens and smooth, minimalistic, Scandi-like surfaces. There are physical buttons. The infotainment screen is the only thing that's touch sensitive in this cabin. The driver's screen is set back ever so slightly from its housing, which gives it a bit of a retro feel. The screen here is angled ever so slightly towards the driver, and it's not too big. Although it's still the main event in the cabin, it's not elbowing everything else out the way, saying, hey, look at me. All the small different design elements come together to create a whole. There's a sense of balance and unity in here. The graphics on the screen, again, are an extension of the design of the car. It fits perfectly, it's fun, it's engaging, and there's plenty to customize. It will take a little bit of playing around with to get familiar with where everything is, but for me, that's part of the romance and having a new car and exploring all its little features. There are little pockets of storage everywhere, and I do mean little. There's a bit of storage down here. This is a £39 option with a little lid that has the logo 5 on it. We've got somewhere to put the key, little pocket of space here, a couple of little storage bits around here. Not a lot of space in the door bins, but there's just about enough space for your keys, your phone, and loose change if you carry any. There are a mixed use of materials. We've got this faux leather with yellow stitching. There's a bit of plastic, the gloss black stuff. There's a couple of USB type C ports as well as the wireless charge pad. Everything has felt very functional, but of course they had to put something a little bit French, and they've put the volume buttons on top of the screen, like the sort of buttons that you get on the side of a watch. I mean, a little dial would have done just fine, but that's fine. The stalk situation on the right hand side of the steering wheel here does need a bit of an overhaul. We've got your gear selector, your wipers, and then of course the controls for the multimedia system. So there's a lot going on the side here. Again, lots of physical buttons on the steering wheel, which can feel a little overwhelming at first, but like with anything, once you spend a little bit of time in here, it all starts making a lot more sense. There's a favorites button which you can program as a shortcut to various different things. I've got it set to vehicle world menu. So once you go in there, there's various different parameters that you can customize. There's a multi-sense button on the steering wheel as well, which lets you set different driving modes, including comfort, eco, sport, and perso, which I assume stands for personalized. As with all modern cars, there's plenty of ADAS systems present here too. With regards to the boot, as we saw earlier in the video, it's a fairly decent size for your bits and bobs. It's designed in such a way that it has tray-like qualities, so when you do your weekly shopping and put your bags in, things aren't going to move around in the boot too much, which is quite a nice touch. And because of the lack of moving parts and components within the chassis, you don't get a lot of mechanisms that's getting in the way of the boot. Consequently, the boot is deeper, maximizing every inch of space, which makes it perfect for everyday use. As for the space in the rear, as you would imagine, it's at a premium. I'm 5'11", and the driving position is set to my preferred position, and although there isn't a lot of legroom, the headspace really isn't too bad. So for maybe a couple of hour journey, it's not so bad. But there's no grab handles, there's no armrest, and there's no ventilation for the passengers in the rear. Now, I know what you're going to say, cost-saving measures. But something I forgot to mention earlier is that this Renault 5 is equipped with adaptive cruise control. So what's an extra 3 feet of piping to send a bit of air back here? To answer the question that I raised at the beginning of this video, whether it's a good car, yeah, it's a great car, but it's an even better second car. It doesn't do the practical thing hugely well, and for longer distances, again, it might not perform great, but it does the simple stuff, the everyday stuff, brilliantly. like getting you from A to B, doing your daily mundane commutes. But should the motorway ever be shut and you need to take a detour through some country roads, then you can have bags of fun without any real compromise. Just the way it should be. I'm forever thinking about what I should buy for myself. My heart says a 997 generation 911, but then I worry about maintenance costs and putting too many miles on it, and I'd want to keep it in a garage or a driveway at the very least, both of which I don't have. Then I think, what about a GR Yaris? Looks like a really fun car. £46,000 brand new. And I'm sorry, I'm not paying 10, 11, 12% APR on a used one. Forget it. Talking of which, we are featuring said vehicle on the channel soon, so if you haven't subscribed yet already, make sure you do so you don't miss that out. It really helps the channel grow and helps PR departments say yes. I really didn't anticipate saying this, but I really fancy the new BMW M2. Hated it at first, but it's growing on me. But 65, 70,000 pounds, and then you got to worry about the running cost of one, and as a second car it's a bit of overkill. I love the new Land Rover Defender, as I mentioned earlier in the video, but that's more of a replacement to the GLC than a second car. Again, it's too much, and the list goes on. So there's a constant battle between my brain and my heart. I want to love it, I want to have fun with it, but it also has to make financial sense. It also has to be a logical choice. And I guess what I'm trying to say is the R5 does all of that in abundance. So much so that if I can successfully have a wall box charger installed at my property, I would go and place a deposit on one of these today. Take from that what you will. I think I'll end the video there. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.